Hey guys. So I wanted to watch Total Recall this week and was reminded, oh yeah, they did a remake of Total Recall back in the 2010s. And all I can remember is people just dunking on the new Total Recall. So this week, I watched both. I wanted to see if the OG still holds up, but more importantly, can the remake improve on the original material and still be a decent movie? Let's dive in, shall we? The premise of both of these movies are relatively the same. A guy in a dystopian future who hates his job goes to get false memories implanted in his brain as his escape from the mundane, and finds out maybe his whole life is a false memory. Let's talk about the 1990s Total Recall starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This movie is a lot of fun. It's also weird as hell. There's a lot of innovative visual effects for this time. Really good puppet and animatronic work in this. I mean, it's absolutely grotesque, but impressive nonetheless. Something that like my lizard brain just absolutely loves is how juicy the bullet hits are in this movie. Super satisfying, just big explosions and blood everywhere. It's phenomenal. I will say the setting for the first half of this movie is relatively gray. I mean, both movies are gray. The other one's 2010s gray. This is more corporate gray, but we'll get into that later. But the Mars element of this movie, obviously Mars is red, so it brings in a lot of color to this, which is quite a breath of fresh air considering how gray the first part of the movie is. I will say though, the city in Mars, it kind of seems like the Super Mario Brothers takes a good amount of the look from the Mars portions of this movie. But as you could probably guess, Mars is where the weirdest stuff is, which I think is where this movie shines the most. It is funny to me that Mars with blue skies kind of just looks like the Grand Canyon. The cars in the movie are a little bit too close to Cybertrucks for my comfort. What an absolute ugly car. I think the dynamic between the guy chasing him down and the kid from Stuart Little have really good banter together, and I'm gonna say it. Not enough Sharon Stone. Wasted potential in my opinion. I love how many double crosses there is in this movie. Just from scene to scene, it keeps you guessing. You learn something new every scene, which is really, really engaging. Overall, I thought this was a great time. Over the top action, a really interesting look, classic Arnold one-liners, and a really overall engaging story. I'm gonna give the original a 9 out of 10. Next up is 2012's Total Recall starring Colin Farrell. Let's talk about the bigger differences in this. I can see how removing Mars from the story altogether is an absolute disappointment. With how kooky and colorful and interesting the Mars section is of the original Total Recall, this being missing, I think is a huge misstep. And without Mars, this movie's gray, just like every movie of this time is gray. I don't know what it was with 2010s. We need color. All right? And the excessive lens flares don't count as color. Another minor issue I have is that this movie's PG-13. I realize it makes it more accessible to a wider audience, and it's not a huge problem for the movie, but as hyper-violent as the original is, it does seem a little underwhelming in comparison. I do think it does a good job of creating a world bleak enough to want to escape from. Arnold lived in a nice, bright apartment in a decent side of town. In the city that Colin Farrell lives in this, it looks miserable and overpopulated. It does kind of give off a bit of Blade Runner vibes, which I do enjoy the look of. Sidebar, both of these characters' disappointing lives involve them being married to absolute bombshells. I mean, like maybe Shut Up or whatever. I mean, it could be worse. I don't know. One of the changes that they make for the movie that I think I do like is them getting rid of Richter's character in general and having his fake wife, played by Kate Beckinsale, be the one who's hunting him down for the movie. My personal opinion is that I think that Richter is kind of lame and Sharon Stone is severely underutilized. So Kate Beckinsale being the force that is tracking him down throughout the entire movie, to me seems to make more sense and is more interesting overall. Another change is that they have two scenes in the original. One where his work friend betrays him, and one where a representative of Recall poses questions of reality to Arnold. In the remake, they combine these two scenes with his work friend showing up to question his sanity. And I think it hits a little bit harder in the remake. Bryan Cranston as Cohagen is great in this movie. Davy Jones himself, Bill Nighy, is wasted potential, unfortunately. Huge misstep using him for only one scene. You hired Bill Nighy, use him. There's some futuristic elements in this that are super sick. I think the synthetic police force have a really cool design. A cool idea they have in this is they have a little bullet that gets sent through the door that shoots out 100 cameras all around the room so you can see what's happening on the other side of the door. I love that shit. And the action in this, it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of entertaining, high energy fight and chase scenes. And there's some really innovative action choices in this. His first fight with Kate Beckinsale, whoever the fight coordinator was in this, using the slide fighting in the different levels of this weird geometric apartment, mwah, chef's kiss. With how many movies I've watched where people are just fighting in a warehouse and they just like break a window or like hit a table, actually using the set well for the fight scenes, you almost never see anymore. It's amazing. There's a bunch of different nods to the original in this. My favorite one is when he's going through security in disguise. In the first one, he's kind of a big red-headed lady and his thing malfunctions and he tosses the head off and it explodes. In this, you see a woman who looks exactly like the woman from the first one go through security, and it's not her. It's the guy behind her. It's a nice little switcheroo. Something I noticed as he lands on the freeway with hover cars, his gun gets magnetically stuck to the bottom of the car. It's a nice little detail that visually explains how the cars aren't really going off of the road without having a line of dialogue telling you that that's how the cars work. It's a nice little touch. With how weird and over the top the original is, with psychic aliens and Martian brothels and eye-popping animatronics, I can see how if you're a huge fan of the original that this movie can be kind of a letdown. But as somebody with no nostalgia for the original, I thought this movie was really fun. The action's super exciting, the visual effects are better than some of the that comes out now, the world building is stellar, and there's a bunch of really cool ideas in this movie. I enjoyed my time quite a bit, man. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I'm sure that this one is going to piss off a few people for sure, but I had a lot of fun doing this. I haven't seen a lot of Paul Verhoeven movies, so I might look into those in the future, which might look a little bit similar to this one. But thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.